So there I was just staring at the camera, and then this Terry guy shows up, this big head and everything else, and there's all the explosion of cat hair. Guy just runs in, jumps in his chair, and shit goes flying everywhere. Cats, books, computers. It's awful. And I woke up and found you on here on the monitor. What am I going to do? This is worse than normal gibberish.
That is pretty weird. I'm not sure they're going to get any of that.
Probably not. You're not helping, though. You're supposed to dive in here when you see me drowning. You're supposed to throw the life ring. You're not supposed to reach your hands out and push me down.
I wanted to wait till you face planted in the carpet and broke your nose, personally.
We already did that this week. We don't need to do that again. We already did that this week.
Yes, but they don't know about that.
Well, I wasn't intending for them to know about it, but now you have uncorked that particular thing.
Wait a second now. How can you possibly hide it? Look at your face.
Looks like a face to me.
Yeah, it looks like a nose that's all messed up. You think they're not going to comment on your nose? Come on, man.
Nobody's going to talk about my nose.
Okay, I get where your logic was going here. I'm so ugly they won't possibly notice my nose.
That's where I was going.
Nevertheless, here we are.
Here we are. This was not the way I envisioned starting this show. I really didn't. But you were
going to make double vision jokes at my expense. I'm pretty sure that's where you were going. So I preemptively attacked your nose so I could deflect.
Now I need to look up the lyrics to that song by Foreigner. Double vision. I hadn't thought about it until now. God, see? That's all the problems that you cause. All the problems that you cause.
Oh, sure. This is all my fault.
So apparently we're on the geriatric podcast today because...
get off my podcast.
I had to swallow 9 pills this morning. Oh, my God.
The doctor says I can't have any more bourbon.
The doctor told me to drink as much bourbon as I want. It won't matter.
Drink more bourbon.
Drink more bourbon.
And bring some for him.
Oh, God. Terry's getting his coffee. So I guess this is the point where we say, howdy, folks, and welcome to another episode of the Dev Robot Society. I'm Paul E. Cooley. Terry Mixon is getting coffee. He'll be back here in a moment. And Veronica Jaguar is currently our foreign correspondent for bowling alleys.
To be a correspondent, doesn't she actually have to call in from the bowling alley?
Well, she's going to give us an after-action report next week. So
she's the woman on the street, so to speak?
She's the woman on the street. That's right. She's listening for us. She's getting plot ideas. She's getting all sorts of interesting smells.
I'm pretty sure that I don't want to have any of the smells that came out of the bowling alley. You can keep those.
That would make a great cologne. Ode de bowling alley.
Ode to bowling shoe.
Ode to bowling shoe. God. That's awful. That's awful. So anyway, y'all have to deal with just us two today. So that said, it's been an interesting week, Terry, hasn't it?
I would say that it has.
Why don't you tell us about your very interesting week?
Since I put you on the spot, I figured I would go ahead and I imagine this show is to blame for all of my problems anyway, so I might as well go ahead and kick it out here. Saturday of last week, I got double vision. I blame this show because obviously the stress from the show is what caused it. Saturday, obviously that's the way it works, right? No?
Just keep digging.
So, double vision. I figured it was eye strain. And coasted on until Monday when my wife said, no, we should really go see somebody about this. And I said, okay. Because it's not getting any better. So we called around, couldn't get an ophthalmologist appointment for a week. And one of the people we called said that if you want to see an ophthalmologist, perhaps your best option is to go to the emergency room, and the one down for UTMB in Galveston has an on-staff ophthalmologist. And I said, okay, well, we'll go ahead and do that. So I drove down there, and it turned into be a much bigger issue than I anticipated it was going to be because they were thinking things like strokes and heart attacks and other things going on. So I got admitted to the hospital for testing and was there for 2 days. And they did an MRI and a CAT scan on my head and a CAT scan on my chest to go ahead and look for all of that kind of nonsense. Did all kinds of blood work. They know what is wrong. They just have to figure out what caused it. The eye muscles have a number of nerves that serve them, and nerve number 6 is the one on the left side out here. And it has had, I forget the exact word that they use to it, some kind of small trauma to it. It's not dead, it's not whatever, but it's slightly damaged, and I cannot quite turn my vision all the way into the left corner. And so they say that for 60% of the people, that'll resolve in 1 to 3 months. For an additional 30% of the people, the 4 to 6 months, it'll resolve. So 90% of people resolve with no intervention within 6 months. The other 10% might have to have surgery on the eye to loosen up the muscle, to allow things to realign, or wear glasses that put a prism on that side to correct the angle of what you're looking at. So, well, I don't admit that kind of thing on the air now, all right? Of course she's been beating me. What do you think? Where was I going at with this? Now I've lost it.
Sorry. You came to a natural stopping point, so of course I had to put that up there. So basically, the nerves recover.
Oh, I know what I was going to say.
Most people get it back.
It could be caused by a number of things. I could have had something related to my diabetes affect the blood flow to that area. I could have had a neurological condition, one of several that are relatively closely related, that could do the same sort of thing. They haven't pinned down the cause yet. They're still looking for the exact cause. They have a suspicion that I have a condition called ocular myasthenia gravis. And that's grave muscle weakness. And I know a fair bit about that because even though it's a rare condition, my wife has been dealing with it for 20 years. So I've promptly informed her that she is a carrier and that I got it from her. The neurologist was like, that's not how that works. That's not how that works. But so in any case, a lot of myasthenia gravis starts in the eyes and progresses. It's weird because from what they said for myasthenia gravis, women get it earlier in life. Men typically pick it up in their 70s and 80s, and it sticks to the eyes. So it's kind of weird that way. But nevertheless, I know I'm taking preemptively a drug called Mestinon, which my wife takes to help deal with this. The fact that they put me on it, they put me on the hospital for 24 hours, and it did marginally improve the double vision, is why they are leaning that direction, because that drug works on myasthenia gravis. So, that's where I'm sitting at. Oh, I have to wear, when I'm driving, I'm wearing an eye patch on this eye. So I'm actually Dread Pirate Terry when I'm driving down the highway screaming pirate curses at people that cut me off.
So just so you know, if you drive down in Clear Lake, you'll see Terry with his eye patch. Don't ask about his wooden leg.
I keep me wooden leg in me pants where a man should keep his wooden leg.
Yeah, don't drive around in Clear Lake. Just don't.
Well, that's fine. I don't drive around in Clear Lake anyway, so I don't care. I don't live in Clear Lake anymore. I haven't for 20 some odd years now.
Where do you live? Oh, never mind. We'll talk about that later.
I live in League City. League City, which is
it's a general area.
NASA's over in Clear Lake.
It's a general area. It's all getting destroyed. It's all going to blow up. So yeah, we hope you get better soon.
Well, it hasn't improved. It's improved from the drug. It hasn't improved otherwise, but it's too soon. It's only been a week.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a gradual process that runs for 3 to 6 months to see if this resolves on its own. And 90% of the time it does, so I'm relatively confident that I will resolve as well.
Okay. I'm going to guess that kind of ruined a lot of writing time and writing capabilities.
I have not wrote jack squat, jack squat for the last week, as one might imagine.
Oh, man. Oh, God.
I will start writing again tomorrow. I'm gonna knock out a chapter a day and see if I can pick up the pace. I've got the time to do it, but I've got to start writing a chapter a day if I intend to make this deadline.
Okay. Well, that's cool. Well, I already got distracted from a lot of things this week, one of which was, for whatever reason, I started coughing again really, really hard. My OCBD went into overdrive and had to take care of some family stuff because my father's cousins were in town, so we had to do several things with my uncle. It was a lot of riding in cars, driving in cars, and helping move people where they need to get. So it was a lot of that stuff. And I guess it was Thursday night. I think it was Thursday night. I had a coughing fit so bad I passed out. And I hit the floor.
Ugh.
And I think I broke my nose. That's why it looks so goofy right there. But I was somewhat productive this week. I got a pitch to get put together for reasons I'm not going to explain. I did some more work on extinction. I got to that point where I've been stymied by this epilogue because there's a lot of what the fuck going on that you have to ask. And the question is, how much do I really want to answer about this? How much do I really want to talk about it? And a friend of mine suggested I should just say, fuck that, wrap it up with the characters and be done. Leave the rest of the fallout and everything else to the reader. And I was like, that's interesting.
Well, that's one way to deal with it.
I'm not sure that's going to be satisfying for everybody. But it is one way to look at it. I'm going to have to go back when I start doing this again and take a really hard look at what it is I'm trying to accomplish with this epilogue. So other than that, I'm outlining. I was trying to put together a pitch for one book and ended up with 3 books ideas, and so I'm putting synopses together for 2 of them and outlining one of them right now.
Welcome to being a writer.
Yeah, because I don't have enough works in progress already. But there's a method to my madness. I just can't talk about it right now. But getting all that done and made some inroads with some folks this week. We'll see how that turns out. But that's been my week. Pretty boring for the most part. I guess, maybe, perhaps.
Well, I don't know that I would say it's boring. I mean, you did fall out of a chair.
Yeah, but there's not epic, you know. I fall down on a chair, I wake up, I'm nose down, wondering how I got into bed, and then realize I'm not in bed, I'm on the curtain, and the chair is behind me, and the dog is licking my face and whining at me. Food guy, are you okay? Food guy, get up! Food guy, no! It wasn't that bad. It was just scary. Anyway, yeah, I'll be cogitating on that little mess. But we're not here to talk about that.
What are we here to talk about, Paul?
We are here to talk about writing things we're not.
Ooh. So you mean writing about being a male gigolo?
I would say I can imagine the experience of a gigolo. I mean, after all.
Can you now?
Oh, I'm sure I can, honey. No, I'm thinking more about physicality.
Well, you saying gigolos aren't physical?
I'm going to smack you upside the head. I mentioned, I guess last year or 2 years ago, something like that, and the books are still alive in my head. I just haven't written them. The idea of writing three stories for a collection called Static. And it's about people who have lost their hearing or are born deaf. That brings up a lot of issues, which is knowing exactly how all that works and trying to get into the head of somebody who's been deaf since birth, I don't think I can relate that experience. I don't think I can even relate to that experience.
I agree. That's a tough one.
So that's one of those stories I dropped from the 3 that I was going to write, because I realized I don't have the experience to even address that. I mean, I can read books written by folks who have been deaf since birth, but that still doesn't tell me exactly what I want to hear sound. Do they hear sound and just don't know what it is? In other words, in their head, like I have tinnitus and I hear that whine all the time. Do they hear that and just not know what it is? Or is it complete nothing? I can't relate to nothing. I can relate to the whine. I can relate to the sound of something shrieking far off, of a steam kettle going off. I cannot relate to nothing. So that's a very, very difficult thing for me to get around, to write a story like that. And I think it's very, very hard to, and like Xander says, you got to be mindful about it. It's a story I'm just not sure I got the balls to write. I would have to do a lot of research, I think, in order to allow myself to write that. And even then, it would have to go through a couple of sensitivity readers, just because I don't want to fuck that up in a disrespectful or marginalizing manner. But at the same time, those are things that interest me, is writing about that. I have experience where I'm dealing with hearing loss, and I'm going to be dealing with some vision issues probably very, very soon. I want to write about those things because they're part of my experience, they're part of my life, and I want to talk about them. And I want to write about some of those characters who have those things going on with them, because it's something I need to get out. And the plots are there, the characters are there, I just need to sit down and write them. I can write about a person with tinnitus. I can write about a person who is, their vision is going to shit. I can write about those things. I can even write about temporary blindness because I've had it. I can write about temporary hearing loss because I've had that too. I can't write about never having had those senses. That just doesn't work for me in the way of looking at how to do things. That's really hard. That's really, really tough. And it's an interesting conundrum, because even if you don't give a shit about hurting people's feelings, the bottom line is that there's some kind of professionalism to be carried out, and at least trying to relate the experience, in my mind.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the can of worms comes in. So you brought this topic up, and I was thinking about that today a lot, about putting it in there, because this is a topic that can be filled with a lot of landmines. So I wanted to just kind of get that out there before we talk about anything else.
Yeah.
my 2 cents on it.
There's nothing wrong with having that particular opinion on the matter. The thing is that as writers, we write about the entire universe. Mm-hmm. The entire world is our oyster. We're not blind. Do we always exclude the blind? Should we not even have anyone who's blind in our stories? People that have hearing loss, do we not include them because we can't know that experience? If you take it far enough, then I should not be able to write about anyone that's not a white male guy in his 60s.
True. And that's not what I was saying.
I understand, but I'm saying that if you take it far enough, and
Yeah.
I'm not saying that being another color is a disability. I'm just saying that if you stick to writing what you are and what you personally know, that is where you go when you go down the long road of excluding writing about things that you are not. And I don't think we should exclude things that we are not. We should write about the world as it truly is. I'm not gay, but I do have gay characters. I can write them believably well. I think that you should not exclude yourself from writing characters there. You may want to shy away, perhaps, about having a main character who is disabled.
That is more like what I was talking about, was having, because if I had to spend the entire story inside the head of somebody who has no hearing, has never had hearing, somebody who's never had sight. I from an imagination point of view, I'm not sure I could relate to it.
Now, here's the way it would work for you, Paul. I'm going to give you a story idea, and you're
no.
going to hate me for it.
Here we go.
You need to have a main character that is completely deaf. And then it starts hearing words. Something is talking to it. Somebody is speaking to him.
There's the problem. A person would never have developed language.
I understand that. And that's also part of the story.
Strangely enough, that runs into something else that was part of static. So I get that. What if you read a story about hijacked hearing aids that tell them to do things? Now, here's a really funny thing that I read, because I had an auditory hallucination when I first got my hearing aids after like a week or two, and it freaked me the fuck out. I was walking into the kitchen, and somebody said, "Hey!" I turned around, it was like saw no one there. And I was kind of freaked out about it. I did a little research, and it turns out that when you start getting hearing aids, if you have decent amount of hearing loss, every once in a while the hearing aid can do something and your ear catches it wrong and actually makes a sound in your head that has sounds. It's an auditory hallucination. It sounds like it was there. It really wasn't. And that's kind of freaky in and of itself, but that kind of goes back to talking about folks with neurological problems and things like that.
The key to writing something that you're not is being able to speak with someone that may have that condition and have some knowledge, or being able to research it in a way that gives you some insight. For example, if I was going to go ahead and write about a gay main character, I would go, the go-to guy for this, I would go to J.R. Handley.
That was a nice way to go ahead and shade him for the shit he's been talking in chat. That was very, very well done. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Although it was a low-hanging fruit and a really easy target.
J.R. Handley is pretty much the definition of a low-hanging fruit. Whoa! 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 Oh, no. Oh, no, hang on. You can put that right back up in a second.
Oh, the shit has started now. Terry, why do you do this?
Hey, he started this shit with me.
I know.
He had it coming.
Matt says, I don't think you need to hear to develop language, but you may not immediately understand the sound language makes, right? But if you're hearing without hearing, maybe psychic. Yeah.
It's already in your mind, so it can tap into whatever you think it is. Maybe he sees the shadows of hands making gestures and words in the corner of his vision.
But see, this kind of goes back to the old, is it Aristotle and the elephant? Or Aristotle in the cave with the guys who aren't able to see. They can only see parts of the shape and touch, and each of them thinks it's something different when it's really an elephant. That's kind of the way I think about that.
Xander says this. And if I actually seriously am going to write a character that's a main character in that community, I would go to somebody like yourself and ask questions. Thus far, I've had gay characters as secondary characters. I haven't actually had them as the primaries, except for Veronica's love interest.
Huh?
In Empire Bones, one of the female characters is gay.
Right. Didn't Helen Keller learn, so why couldn't this character? It's not a question of learning. I guess my point is if I drop you into a cage of chimpanzees, are you going to learn their language?
You're going to learn enough about it to get along.
Maybe.
Yeah.
You're going to learn body language and things like that. But if somebody's talking in your voice, you have nothing, or in your hair. If somebody's talking in your mind and you have never heard words before, you would not be able to put references to them to know what those words were unless they came along with some packet of information that you can relate to.
Well, the way that it would work is if somebody's speaking into your mind, it's not that you're hearing the words. It's not that you're seeing the sign language. It's directly applying itself to the language centers of your brain. And so you get the end result without actually hearing or seeing the impetus that caused it.
Interesting. It's hard to capture the nuances and true depth of having a disability or experience you have never had. Yes.
And that's why we would have to be careful. That's why I would not want to write a main character with a disability, because I do not have what it takes to do justice to it in a way that is respectful.
Right. But
the very last thing you want to do with somebody that has a disability as a character is make them into a stereotype. Mm-hmm. That is insulting, that is wrong, and it should be avoided.
Agreed. You know what I can fuck with? People losing their hearing. People who used to hear that now can't. People who used to see that now can't. That's very easy because there's a frame of reference, even though that frame of reference is no longer available in the now, that frame of reference was available in the past, which means that person, if they do not have aphantasia, as somebody brought up over here, they can see the color blue when they think about it. Even if they can't see it with their eyes, they remember what it looks like. They remember what a deer looks like. They remember what a car looks like. They remember color. They remember texture. They remember what all of that looks like, even though they can't see it now. The same thing with sound. You can remember how things sound even if you can no longer hear them. How often do you walk around and suddenly a song gets stuck in your head and you can make out every beat, everything that goes along with it? Every little piece of musical nuance is stuck there in your fucking skull and you have to ram your head against the wall 7 or 8 times to get it out of there. That frame of reference isn't going away. If you lose your hearing, that's still going to be there. And I guess that's something I can relate to. That's something me as a writer, I can write about those experiences because I have them. I have had them. Those are things I can write about without worrying about trampling on anything big time. But then you have that character meet somebody else who has been blind or deaf from birth. Then the things, gears change a little bit. Because you're coming from a place where one of them has a frame of reference and the other one does not.
It makes me wonder, and this is a little bit off subject. Does a community of people that are blind from birth, do they not quite see someone that is blind after having had sight as really completely one of them?
I don't know.
And I don't know the answer to that either.
There's a book whose name I've forgotten now, and I mentioned it several times when I was writing Static way back in the day, but I've forgotten the name of it. But it describes the whole deaf community in sign language from where it really started in the Northeast. I can't remember it's like, I think it's New Hampshire, is where they had like a bunch of folks got together and they had recessive genes, and so a bunch of them, the kids ended up deaf. You had something like a 50% chance of becoming deaf. And this sociologist goes through all the different ways that the coping worked, how non-deaf siblings dealt with their deaf siblings and parents and the whole 9 yards, and how all those communities came together, how ASL got started, all of that kind of stuff. It was a fascinating book, and I can't believe I can't remember the name of it. But they did talk about a little bit of there's some militancy. Like, for instance, I know in the deaf community, there are some people who get very irate if you have your hearing fixed.
Ooh, I had no idea.
Children of a Lesser God. Go see the play, go see the movie. It's excellent, and it'll break your heart. Basically, there is some militancy in all of these groups that you shouldn't, this is the way you are, and you shouldn't do something to break the way you are because there's nothing wrong with you. That's maybe militancy is the wrong word for it, but that's the theory behind it, I guess. But regardless, I think there are some stigmas in those communities. Just like in the LGBTQ communities, depending on who you're talking to, there can be stigmas against other members of the community. which is really unfortunate considering power belongs in coming together in that particular instance, but that be that as it may. It is an interesting sociological fact that in some of these subgroups, you're going to get that same kind of antagonism toward one another that makes no sense to people who are outside the subgroups. So that's a good point, Terry. Let's see. Xander says, I have a few friends that didn't have mental voices and they can't explain how they think when not talking stuff through out loud. JR says they struggle to imagine people who do not have an inner voice. Mine never shuts up. Movie reels in my head too. Right. So, you know, most of my characters end up with some inner voice of some sort. It's either somebody from their past or it's their passenger that we all seem to have that talks to them. Because I have that experience all the time. Somebody's talking to me all day long. It's me talking to me. But you can basically give each of those things their own personality and how you see them. So if somebody else can't relate to that, that's a very... I can't imagine not having that either, JR, because I've been like that my entire life, as far as back as I can remember. Same with you, Xander. I can't relate to that. I don't know. What do you think, Terry?
I think that there are a lot of things about it that is hard to relate with. When you don't have a particular condition, you can try to visualize what it is, but you can't really imagine the depths of what they go through. You can't put yourself in their place. And so there are going to be things you do not understand, you do not get, that you just can't do credit. It's hard to get there. And that's one of the reasons I don't think I would ever write a primary character that's disabled.
I think if I'm going to write static again, I'm going to have to go to some deaf dinners. I can't remember what they call them now. Silent dinners, something like that. They invite folks who can hear to come and basically have dinner and learn some ASL in the process of having a complete dinner without making a single sound, which gives you some idea of how things are. It's obviously a very, very superficial look at how it is to be deaf, but it does at least give you some kind of comprehension of what things are like from that standpoint. I think it's more along the lines of it's a good excuse to go and learn some ASL. Matt says, I get a similar thing. I can't understand how people can't see patterns the way I do. In fact, most people can't even see the connections exist, let alone how they fit together. Yes, I understand that completely. Why don't you get the concept that a squared plus b squared equals c squared? What the fuck is your problem? It's plain as day to everybody else. I know the feeling. Both sides of that, actually. But it is really hard to relate in that fashion. Jairus says, I pester my friends when I need descriptions of things involving colors. That would drive me nuts. That would drive me nuts. I've never been colorblind, obviously. Not something I want either. Sanders says I'd have to do a lot of research and talk to a range of people if I was to write a primary character with a disability, especially like deaf, blind, etc. Yep. Sensitivity reader would be a wonderful thing, especially one who's not going to try and hang you from the yardarm for being wrong. That's why you do it, so you can fix it. Chris says, used to help a lot of blind people in college. One of them who went to a blind school told me they had an okay to touch, not okay to look rule.
I'm not sure what that means.
Excuse me. In other words, you had to pretend you were blind. Touch, get things by touch, not by looking. Interesting. Jared says, when I was a kid, my teacher sent me to a shrink. They thought I was depressed because I only drew storm clouds, so I've never seen a regular cloud. I can't see those colors. Huh. Interesting. touches a tap, look is moving your hand over something. Oh, okay.
That makes more sense.
That makes more sense.
I couldn't quite figure out what it meant.
Neither one of us could parse that. Sorry about that. Patterns and data everywhere. Yeah, you don't need to be Moriarty to see them. What about writing folks who are missing certain pieces?
Arms, legs, the left ear.
The left ear. Wait, what? Are you left ear? Are you a fan of the left ear, or you're a fan of the right ear? What's going on here? Why did you single out the left ear?
I just said an ear. I'm not sure which one that the famous artist cut off, so I don't really remember.
Van Gogh.
Van Gogh. I don't remember which ear it was.
I don't think it mattered. We're too busy making ear jokes.
I hear you, man.
That was bad. That was really bad. So I think if you, and this is not to minimize that at all, but the bottom line is I've had to walk with canes. I've been on crutches for months at a time. I know what it's like to, every time you put your foot down, it feels like somebody is hitting it with a sledgehammer. I understand that. I can relate to having problems with ambulating. I cannot relate to missing a limb. But I can relate to not being able to ambulate. There we go. Depends on how they lost the limbs. This would affect their experience. That is also true. There's a difference between losing it in a car wreck, having cancer take it, or having an IED take it. I get that. I think it was the one on the side that is correct. Sander, thank you so much for making that clear. Dude, lots of tail here. What's going on?
It is his left ear.
His left ear, okay. Gotcha. Jared says, when I got hurt in Iraq, they told me I would never walk again. I spent some time in the wards at Walter Reed with amputees. It puts life in perspective. Yeah, I'm sure it does. I'm sure it does. It was the left, but it looks like the right because he used a mirror. Ah, that explains it. And it's self-portrait. Got it. I got it. You ever seen The Deer Hunter, JR? Have to ask these questions. When he did portraits. Got it. Huh. Very, very interesting. You have years ago. Okay. What about the original Jacob's Ladder? It's another good one. Those are good movies about the Vietnam era and everything, all the shenanigans that went on at the VA hospitals. It's such a fucking tragedy. Anyway, yeah, the original Jacob's Ladder is definitely worth seeing. It will fuck your brain up. It's good stuff. Good stuff. Says the guy who likes horror. What else did you want to talk about, Terry?
Well, since we've particularly run out of this particular aspect of it, why don't we open up the floor to the listeners and see what other subject we can use the last 20 minutes on?
This is true.
We could talk about JR's sexuality, but that might be offensive to somebody.
Look, we don't judge. It's a judgment-free zone, huh?
Oh, it is absolutely not a judgment-free zone. I judge JR all the time.
V is on foreign assignment at bowling alleys. If you watch all the Rambos back to back, the scars on his back move around. Why doesn't that surprise me?
I forget there was a movie that had a guy wearing an eye patch, and throughout the movie, the eye patch just kept moving back and forth. Sometimes in the same scene, it would move back and forth.
I think that was in The Mummy Returns, the second Mummy movie with the hot air balloon guy. Because he wears the eye patch and he asks him what's up with the eye patch. He says, "Oh, nothing. I thought it looked dashing." And I think it's in that movie, it moves around, but there's a couple of farce movies where they move the eye patch around, and maybe it's even in Dr. Evil, whatever. Might be there. How do you decide to kill off a well-loved character?
Well, in my case, I don't. In the case of Paul, he does that every day.
Ooh. There's an art to figuring out which of these motherfuckers you can cack. There is an art to it. I'm not saying I'm an artist of the form or form of the artist, whatever, but I think it depends on what the story needs. If you find out that you need a sacrifice, you need to figure out which of the characters need to go on, period, end of story. There's always one of the main characters that is not as important as the others. There just always is for the rest of the story. Up to that point in the story, they may have actually been the most important character to carry the other characters to where they need to go. But then, for whatever reason, it's their time to leave the stage. So you have a couple of ways you can do it, but deciding which one you cack, that depends on what you're going to be doing afterwards. You cannot absolutely get rid of the hacker if you absolutely positively need the hacker at the end of the story. You can't get rid of the soldier if you absolutely positively have to have the soldier at the end of the story. So you pick the one that you want to sacrifice. And if you did your job right, you made the audience love them, you kill them. And not only do they hate you, the characters hate you, everybody hates you, and they want payback. It's a lovely thing. Then you get the hate mail. And you laugh at the hate mail, because some of it's just downright funny.
You're just
killing
mean.
off. Do what now?
You're just mean.
I'm just mean. Or even kill off the main character. Now that I don't recommend. I don't recommend.
You don't recommend going ahead and doing the same thing Scott Sigler did and killing off every single point of view character in the novel?
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that. I don't recommend that at all. At least with that, it was the end of the book, so that I can get. But if you're talking about killing off the main character during the story, that's bad. If it's at the end of the story, I get it. I understand, have done it, been there, got the t-shirt, wrote the book, sold the book. It's all good. If you suddenly killed off the main character that the readers have been dealing with from the very beginning and you cap them, 40% through the book, that's going to be a problem. That's going to be a big problem. At some point, that main character needs to hand off the main character duties before they get capped. My humble opinion. The book that we're talking about is Earth Core.
Yeah.
The original Earth Core. The original Earth Core. Matt says there's a thing about pirates wearing eye patches during the day and then swap over at night so the eye is already light sensitive. Oh, yeah.
I can see that.
That's right. It wasn't just pirate ships. I think that was everybody who had to go down into the hold to do anything. I think you were right about that. I get that nobody was a real hero, but they didn't need to be dicks. He fixed that in the second edition. He did fix that. Ah, this again. Terry, when do you decide to end a series? When your publisher tells you to, right?
Well, it can't drag on long enough to where you figure, I really should bring this to an end.
Yeah. On Mastodon last night, there's an author there who was railing about Alien. Alien, Predator, and Terminator. He said, the biggest problem with these movies is it's always the same problem. It's always the same force you're up against. It's always the same antagonist. Nothing changes. And there's some truth in that. My response was some series need to take a bow and leave. This is the way it is. When you've done as much as you can in that world, the question is, why are you doing anything else? Well, in Disney's case, Money. Lots and lots of money. Even though those numbers have gone down. The viewer numbers have gone down. Everybody's sick of it. They're kind of sick of the MCU. They're kind of sick of Star Wars. They're kind of sick of this, that, and the other because the properties just aren't different enough. They're all the same. It's the same shit over and over again. You either have to make it radically different or just fucking give it up. In my humble opinion, 6 or 7 books, maybe that's where it needs to stop if it's a creature feature. Space opera, who the hell knows? You need to keep that shit going on forever.
Well, there still needs to be an end goal. You can't have an eternal single story running if it's a story where you're doing the episode of the week type books. That one can keep going for a while. Like i.e. the In Death series can have book after book after book after book dealing with murders and solving those cases because there is a beginning, a middle, and an end. Mm-hmm. Something is solved. If you've got a storyline that just continues going, eventually people are going to get tired of not having the problem solved.
Unless it's a problem that can never be solved.
Well, then probably you shouldn't be writing about that then.
Piers Anthony has had a lot of success with Xanth. Xanth didn't have repeat characters, Chris. Xanth is the universe. It is not the characters. So you're right. And when you talk about a series, it's not really a series in the traditional sense because you're getting different main characters almost every time. Even if you bump into them as secondary or tertiary characters in other books, the main character is almost always changing. At least as I remember it. Hard to disagree. Alien Romulus is awesome. Deadpool is awesome. That's fine. That's fine. I'm actually looking forward to seeing Alien Romulus because it's going back to the original. It's going to be much more what I liked. But we'll have to see. Deadpool can be an awesome movie. I was talking about the universes in general. They have stagnated. If you go look at the TV numbers are way the fuck down for all the MCU bullshit and the Star Wars crap to the point where they're cutting costs and everything else. It's because they oversaturated the marketplace and there's no fucking goal. There's no goal. All the Marvel shit is all the same unless you're talking about something like Deadpool. It's the same bullshit over and over again. Watch The Boys and you'll see it over and over and over again. It really feels like that's how they design these Marvel and DC movies. It's ridiculous. I'm sorry, I went on a rant. But Terminator, what else is there to do? What else is there to do?
When they brought out Terminator Genesis, I actually thought that one had some possibility of going on because it opened up new storylines that could be pursued in our world today.
Today, yeah.
And that had the opportunity to make something that was in the same universe but different. And for whatever reason, maybe it didn't do well. They didn't do it, which was sad.
Yes, it was sad. And therein lies the problem, because I just don't think you can keep carrying that on over and over and over and over again. I watched the Terminator TV series when it was on because it was interesting. Because it was set in the now, in the near future. Not because it was an apocalyptic hell waste. And also it had a different drama to it and to how it was working and everything else. And it actually made a decent story. I watched it for a season. But it wasn't Terminator. It really wasn't. It had the same characters. It did not have the same feel at all to it. So it had the idea of a really powerful android and stuff like that, but it didn't have some of the other machinations. I know there's an Alien TV show that's coming out, but I think it's mainly focused on Weyland-Yutani bullshit surrounding the alien stuff. Although I could be completely wrong on that. I just don't know how they're going to carry that off, for how long they can carry it off. So I think there's just some problems with all of that. It's just, you just can't keep carrying it on forever. It's either got to get radically different or just fucking quit it, man. I don't need to see the same plot recycled 7 times with 7 different heroes. Just don't need it. Chris says, I did find that after a while, Xanth always had a new character, but same plots. Yes. That's why
we were talking about the same plots earlier, Paul. How Paul needs to write horror stories with the same plots, every single last one of them.
No. Bad monkey. Bad. James says, I think having different stories in the same universe is fine. Agreed. As long as you don't try to bring in all the major characters, like having Star Wars movies without a Skywalker. How could you possibly have a Star Wars movie without a Skywalker?
Oh my God.
Oh my God. No, that's different. That's Shatner. That's totally different. What was it? Star Wars Rogue One? That didn't have any Skywalkers in it, right? That was actually the first Star Wars movie I enjoyed in probably since Empire. I enjoyed that more than Return of the Jedi. So, yeah, weird how that works. Yes, and it was awesome. Exactly. Didn't Vader show up in Rouge One? It had Leia and Vader as cameos. They were not characters. They were cameos. Andor is his TV child. Okay. I guess that's why I'm hearing some buzz about Andor.
Yeah, I've heard some good things about it.
See, if they leave all the other trappings behind, they can do that. But you just, oh, God. Oh, when you do in the series, do you wrap up all of the plots or just the main one?
Just the main one and selective ones of the others, maybe?
Depending how long the series is, it is quite possible that it is impossible to wrap up all the plot points. So in my mind, you wrap up the main one and you wrap up as many of the secondary ones as you can. Tertiary ones, why bother? You didn't bother pursuing them, obviously, because otherwise they would have been wrapped up. So they probably need to just hit the floor and not worry about them. Make that a question for the reader.
That makes
sense. But don't do it with something significant. If it's significant, you need to wrap it up.
If it's going to bug the reader, a lot of the readers, that it's not solved, you probably should wrap that one up.
I'm in that point where Extinction was like, what do I need to include here to wrap all this bullshit up? How do you fucking do that? I could just put the end and that would be that, but I have a feeling that would be a problem. Terry, after you finish the series, going to go to the alternative universe to follow the princess?
Probably not, although I left that as a hook that I could pursue if I wanted to. If I had to pick where I would go in Empire after that, I don't know. I think I might be inclined to go before the Empire was formed, because I left hooks to go back and form it with the first Emperor. And that could be a fun storyline to pursue.
I think that's the storyline you should pursue. Just like one of the major storylines I want to pursue is Dr. G before the trio and Mira and everything else occurred in Soul and Beyond. I still want to write those books.
You just have to have time to write all these books.
I need time and I need money, and I know those books aren't going to sell. Because I just know it. But I want to write those books because I think people who like the Derelict Saga would love those books. They want to know how the trio became the trio. They want to know how all this happened. I've left hooks, I've left hints, I've left all this stuff. It'd be nice to actually put together some of the beginnings of it. It'd be pretty cool. Xander says he's still waiting on Terry to make a spacefaring sci-fi lit RPG.
Believe me, I could do it.
Lit RPG in space.
I just don't know that it would sell as well as what I'm doing right now, so I'm loath to change the formula that's working.
I completely understand that.
It doesn't mean I'm writing the same stories when I'm writing the style that I'm writing in, but the style is working.
Right. Matt says, what do you do when you want to tell the story but need to pay the bills?
You pay the bills?
You pay the bills and you tell the story and you're
as
off
well
time.
as well as you can.
And you're off time.
I have not named the next series yet because I still have to have the discussion to settle those details.
Interesting. What are you going to do?
Got to talk with the publisher. Publisher got input.
Why does the publisher have input? Since when do publishers have input on shit they're going to publish?
since they pay the bills. They have.
That seems incredibly unfair that they want to pay, that they have to pay the bills.
How dare they?
How dare they want any kind of say in what book you're writing or what the title is or anything else? Deep Wellington.
Dare they?
Sugar Daddy Cheney. That's right. Sugar Daddy Cheney. Are you buying him a pimp coat for this year's 20 books?
God, I really should.
Well, you're going to be in Vegas. I bet you can get them pretty cheap. That would be just, I want pictures if that happens. I really want pictures if that happens.
I don't think he would wear it.
No, but it would just be fucking funny. He might put it on. That'd be enough right there. Do you have names in mind for it?
You don't watch much Star Trek, but in Picard, the series, they had one of the characters dressed up like a space pimp. I swear to God.
Oh boy.
I could do that. I could get him the space pimp costume.
Space pimp. 20 books became something else. I can't remember. It's author. What's it called now? Authors.
It is now Author Nation.
Author Nation. There we go. I keep referring to it as 20 books because it's basically the same damn convention.
I believe there are going to be some differences, but until I actually experience it, I don't know that I'm going to know what they are.
Okay. Well, regardless. Riker was a space pimp. Riker was a space whore. There's a difference. You're putting it in the wrong area. He was not the pimp. He, like Shatner, was just, Captain Kirk. I mean, come on. Horn dog. What are you going to do? His goal in life, I think, was to get every alien syphilis known to humankind in the universe. I mean, basically, every time he came back to Dr. McCoy would just run the tricorder and go, Jesus Christ, what the hell's wrong with you?
I forget which movie it was that he was doing something with hitting on somebody, and Bones is like, what's wrong with you?
No, what is it with you? It's in the it's the sixth book where he's banging the shapeshifter, right? And then he bangs the shapeshifter, and then they're in the elevator together. She changes into that monster, and she's talking to him in that same voice, and that's when McCoy looks at him and goes, "What is with you?" It was good shit. It was good shit. That was a good moment. Well, folks, we're almost at the time. Is there anything else you want to ask before we get the hell out of here? Now that I'm awake, I still have tons of caffeine in front of me. It's a bad thing. Q is the pimp. Q is the pimp you were looking for. Well, the first time you meet Q, I just saw that and was like, what the hell are they doing? Because that outfit, oh my God, that outfit. Ugh. So 90s. Ugh, horrible. Even then. It was 80s, technically.
I'll see if I can find a picture of the space pimp and put it into the live channel.
The space pimp. Why did you hate Q, JR? He was terrible. Why did you hate Q? I think Q embodies all the chaos that exploration uncovers. Like cheating a plot. So
oh God, there's that picture.
Story.
Let me get that. Let me see if I can get that sucker there. 'Cause that's a good one. Come on, how can I copy the picture? There it is.
Good luck with that.
All right, here we go. Into the live channel. As soon as I can bring up Discord. There's Discord. Live. There we go.
Oh, Lord. Yeah, that's pimperific.
Isn't it, though?
That's
it's the hat.
It is the hat. Well, no, it's also the fur coat, dude. I mean, come on. He's got like a fur stole there.
Yeah. I'm like, I saw this guy and I was like, that's a space pimp.
I think Q, depending on how he was used perfectly, and it wasn't because they didn't want to write a good story. I think it was basically they wanted to say that there is another level of being that you are not. Like when he first gets when Picard pisses Q off and he throws them to the Borg. That was a big deal because he basically said we're up for anything, and Q went, really? Watch this shit. I think that was actually a really good thing because it showed basically the disrespect of human beings versus the gods, if you will. So anyway, yeah, he was this trickster god Coyote. Spore drives when Q was around. Well, if you have a question or comment about this episode, you can send an email to show@deadrobotsociety.com. You can find me on Mastodon at Paul_E_Cooley at VYRSE.social. You can find us on Facebook at the Listeners of the Dead Robot Society writing community. And there's more of it. Where we mangle all the madness. You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/DRS podcast, where we are live every Saturday at 3 p.m. CST. Like and subscribe so you know when we're live. And if you want to support the show, you can find us at patreon.com/DRS podcast and buymeacoffee.com/DRS podcast, where for as little as $1 a month, you get access to exclusive live shows like the one that's coming up in just about 9 minutes. And at the $10 level, you get your names read, and our $10 patrons are Juan Valentin, James Terrell, Nate Cosby, Antoine Batts, Tony L. Joy, Rick Shaw, Lisa Slack, Isabel Cushy, and Tim Niederreiter. Thank you to all of our patrons for making this show possible. And with that, I think we're done, aren't we?
I think we are.
I think we're done. We got time to nip out and feed the cat, who's going to demand to be fed because he's already on the Mac Mini staring at me. Yes, he's already doing that, so I'm going to have to do that, handle that. Yeah, that's going to be a problem. Anyway, we are going to get out of here. Patrons, we will see you in 8.5 minutes? 9.5. I can't do math. 8.5 minutes. We're out of here.
Bye-bye.